So now we're back. So yeah, we have a backstory to a number of them, and including Dickie and Moltisanti. All right, so we see that although he was what appeared to be like more of the saint of all of them, he really wasn't much of a saint. And although he was put on this pedestal as if he were a saint, Tony ended up still following in the same footsteps. Uh, Notorious cheater, notorious criminal, be killed or be killed, right? Kill or be killed kind of mentality to survive. We also see the backstory of a number of them, but we don't get enough. Like, we get like with the other characters, we get like a barely scratching the surface. We don't know much about Paulie. We don't know much about Silvio. We don't know much about Pussy, other than the fact that we were under the assumption that they were closer in age to Tony, and in reality, they're at least 10 or 15, if not 20 years, they're senior to Tony. So perhaps also that would make sense why so much animosity, because essentially somebody who's younger ends up taking the lead role, the boss role. But yeah, nonetheless, we also see this romance that blossoms with Nikki and his stepmom, and his father's demise because of the abuse that he had witnessed growing up that had traumatized him. And something happens where it's a trigger for him, and he loses it in a fit of rage, essentially kills his father. Again, most of my videos are spoilers, so you already know. But this movie's been out already, so again, don't crucify the messenger. But yeah, and then we find out that his father had a twin who is also played by Ray Liotta in the Slammer, and I guess because he feels guilty that he never really played a role in his uncle's life, he feels that he can maybe absolve himself of his sins by visiting his uncle, which, his uncle's a little on the blank and not very communicative. Um, just kind of, these one-liners, and basically tells Nikki to kind of stay away from Tony and let Tony have the opportunity to be different and to be the professional and be the um, sports athlete that maybe that he was aspiring to be at the time. Um, but yeah, very kind of like, we don't have much of a character here other than the fact that he liked his jazz, and that's pretty much it. Um, Leslie's uh, character in the show also, other than the fact that he was like Nikki's rival and perhaps jealous of the social status and privilege that Nikki had at the time for being Italian American and him being African American at the time, and that segregation, racism, that disbalance, and inequality that we still see to this day. Even though we're claiming that it was the '60s in the past. Um, and just him just being sick of it, and like, no, we're not gonna stand for this, and allow for Italian Americans to benefit from what we do, and that we should just help our own and within our own community. And unfortunately, that goes to blows with violence. But yeah, his character, other than the fact that at the end he's basically takes over because Nikki meets his demise, but never really goes anywhere other than the fact that also he slept with Nikki's love interest, who's his stepmom, and a very beautiful actress, and she plays Italian, and she has all the in there. And you can see that she doesn't want to be a kept woman, that she wants to be an entrepreneur of her own. She wants to own a beauty salon, aspires to maybe move to Hollywood. But because Nikki makes it near impossible for her, and we also see the inequality with women and how women are also treated, aside from the fact that she was already getting a handful of smacks and abuse from her then husband, which is Nikki's father, that's put to an end. But now she's dealing with another set of violence, verbal abuse. And in her trying to attain a business, he makes it near impossible. So, in a fit of rage and anger, she sleeps with Leslie's character. But again, for what purpose? Other than maybe provide some gossip to him that would help Leslie's character have a one up on Nikki. We also see that Nikki is, envied amongst the family. Tony's dad, we see the infamous arrest scene where we see in season one, but this is much more fleshed out on what happens after the fact that Tony's father goes to jail, and who comes in to basically provide the dad role, because now the dad is absent, which was Nikki and shared with Junior. But we see there's a bit of a rivalry there between Junior and Nikki, perhaps because Nikki stood out and perhaps more attractive, or whatever the case may be. So Junior always had this like sense of bruised ego and wanting to always have that one up on Nikki, but never really quite could attain it. As we saw through season one, he wanting to be the boss, and still envious of another family member, now Tony. So again, everything is semi-connected, but is it fully fleshed out? Not really. Also, we see also that when Tony's still a child, fairly small, you can see that Nikki wanted a son. He had already had daughters, but he wanted a son. But that his wife had issues conceiving, or couldn't get a son, or whatever the case may be. And then we fast forward to when Tony's already a teenager, his father's coming out of jail, and then his uncle Nicky has a son, which is Christopher. And the whole film is also narrated by Christopher from beyond the grave, So, so we see like what I guess transpires in his afterlife. But again, like it doesn't necessarily go anywhere. So I don't know. Perhaps it's just the, we're seeing the consensus of all these souls that didn't get much to confess, and they just built a film around that. I don't know. Nonetheless, I'm not throwing shade. It is a great film. 2 hours about, and reminiscent of that time, and you get great soundtrack as well, but it just was missing what essentially the Sopranos was to a number of fans, that it stood out for its own thing. It was all of the goodies that we've seen throughout the years with Goodfellas and Casino and The Godfather, but thrusted into a 90s lens and 1990s lens, and early 2000s. So it was relatable, seeing all these mobsters, and they've done the most heinous of things, and then yet we're seeing them decay and deal with old age and issues, health issues, So I think that's what made the show so relatable. But yeah, I think that there's still potential here if they were to ever revisit this film. And I think James's son did an exceptional job. He did embody his father, so I think there's a lot of potential there as well if they were to revisit the subject matter and it become a series, on HBO. So, but yeah, is it The Irishman? Is it something like, to the level of a Scorsese film? I don't know. I couldn't say. It's a good film, but if you were expecting for it to be on the same level as The Sopranos, the series, I think you might be disappointed. So I hate giving so-so reviews, but that just basically was it. And I'm not the only one who feels that way. So, but nonetheless, please stay tuned. I think it's still worth a watch. You know, it's definitely like on a weekend, on a chilly weekend. You know, on a maybe a lazy Sunday and stuff. And you want to catch up, and you want to kind of like fill in some puzzle pieces that you had lingering from the show. But is it gonna be fulfilling? Fulfilling? Like feel like you know? I don't think so. Yes, but anyway, stay tuned. I will be reviewing real Boogeymen, like I've been reviewing with these last two reviews, and also reviewing the fantasy fictional Boogeyman. You know, I believe I'll be trying to revisit all my scary movie traumas as a kid growing up. A Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, perhaps The Exorcist. I can never really get through that. Maybe Poltergeist. But there's a number of horror movies that I think I might explore and get into whole Halloween drag. And you let me know if you guys are interested in watching, maybe even a reaction video. And yes, please stay tuned for my next impending review. And yes, please let me know. Is the background looking cute? Am I really into the whole spooky, you know, feel of things? Let me know. Leave me a comment down below. Give us a like or share. And if you like these videos, follow my channel, follow my feed, hit that subscription button and the notification button for my next video. So stay tuned for the next one, kitties. XXO, there you go.